Is Tarik Skubal the number one starting pitcher in baseball as we head into 2026? And are we buying into Riley Green's power breakout? We're talking those names and more as I cover the Tigers on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominick Martino, riding solo today, as you can see if you're watching on YouTube. And if you are watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that little bell below. It's going to subscribe you to the channel and give you notification every time we drop a new episode. Or if you're listening on the audio side of things, once again, please make sure you're subscribed. And if you're listening on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings and reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you do that for us as well. Game time, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. And all right, today we're talking about the Tigers. Riley Green, massive power breakout. Is it legitimate? Torkelson, Carpenter, Keith. Listen, all young players. What do we think about them for 2026? The rotation looks strong, anchored by a Tarik Skubal, but is he the number one starting pitcher in 2026? And their top prospect, the number two prospect in all of MLB, Kevin McGonigle. Who is he? We'll break him down on today's episode as well. So, you know, the routine, we'll do the bats first, then pitchers, and then we'll talk prospects. So let's jump into it with Riley Green. Riley Green, big year when it comes to power. The thing is, takes a step back in batting average to do it. Overall, on the year, it's 150 games played for Riley Green, 600 at-bats, 84 runs, 31 doubles, a triple, 36 home runs, 111 RBIs, 2 steals, 46 walks to a whopping 201 strikeouts, 258 batting average. So, like I said, Riley Green, takes a step forward in power and RBIs. And I really like Riley Green. I had him, I want to say, as like a top 30-ish outfielder coming into the season. Now, does he still profile as such? I think so. I think there's a world where, I don't think he has to sell out for, the 36 home runs. And I think we could see, a little bit more in the batting average department. Because that's what the sacrifice is, right? The sacrifice is, hey, I'm going to, swing a little bit more recklessly to get those, home runs. And he takes a step back in the batting average department, goes from 288 2 years ago, 262 last year. And then in 2025, takes that, final step down to a 258 batting average this past season. So with Riley Green, I still think that there's room to believe in him here. I still think that, even if he is, a little bit of a step back in the batting average department and, he winds up being more of the 250-ish hitter instead of a 270-ish hitter, we'll take it, right? Because the 36 home runs, the 111 RBIs on this good Tigers team, and I think they'll continue to be good. I believe in it all. He's not going to be a steals guy, so, he's not really quick, 31st percentile in sprint speed, so he's not super fast, as I mentioned. And I don't necessarily know if I'm buying into, like I said, the 30, almost 40 home run power here. So if Riley Green, is more of a 30 home run guy with a 275 batting average and great counting stats, I like that more for, fantasy profile than just selling out for the straight power. But I do have, if you guys have been paying attention and if you've been listening, I've been working on my 2026 rankings and I'm pulling them up here as, we're talking about this. I'll tell you guys where I have Green ranked going into the 2026 season. And I still think it's going to be, fairly good ranking for the kid. Because as I told you guys, outfield gets rough, going into next season. And I got Riley Green as my outfielder number 21. So I think he's going to be OF2. And Riley Green's still young enough at 25 years old that I think we could. I think we could still, buy in next season and make some money here on Riley Green. Let's keep things pushing, though. Let's move on to his teammate, Spencer Torkelson. Yeah, and honestly, I think Spencer Torkelson took a nice step in the right direction this season at 25 years old. He played 155 games, 563 at-bats, 82 runs, 27 doubles, a triple, 31 bombs, 78 RBIs, 2 steals, 72 walks to 169 strikeouts, and a career-high 240 batting average. So like I said, Torque, setting career highs in multiple different categories. Well, not multiple, actually just a 247 batting average, and I think 72 walks are the only career high. But 31 home runs ties his career high. 82 runs is right below his career high. Shockingly, he had 94 RBIs back in 2023, only 78 this past season. Just the whole team was just so good that there wasn't always the men on base for him to drive in. But I just love the step in the right direction in the batting average department with a 240 batting average for the young Spencer Torkelson. If anybody's forgotten or just didn't know, Spencer Torkelson was a pretty high-end prospect coming up through the Tigers system a few years back. So prospect pedigree behind this kid. Very good for the power. I think the RBIs are going to stay good as well. The batting average, though, is the one thing that, hey, can he stay around that 240 mark, or does he dip closer back to the 227 career mark? I think, he could stay closer to the 240 mark, the X batting average, which is the underlying stat for batting average. Kind of tells you where it should be rather than where it is a 237 mark. So very close to where it was. All the underlying stuff looks good for, the home runs. He barrels the ball well, finds the sweet spot good enough, doesn't chase a lot. I like that. And, listen, his walks were not really bad this season compared to the strikeouts. Not great, but not horrible either. A step in the right direction for the kid. So Torkelson, listen, at first base, I think first base is a bit deeper this year than it was last year. So you're kind of talking about more where you're going to have like a corner infielder and stuff like that. For Torkelson, I have him as the number 15 first baseman. So your AL onlys, closer to a top 10, your 15 minutes. He will be a starting first baseman in those platforms. And then maybe even a utility bat if you need some pop, to measure out your team. Maybe you leaned into batting average and steals a little bit more earlier. Oh, wow. And I didn't click Spencer Torkelson, guys. That's on me there. Apologize for anybody watching on the tubes there. But you know what? With Torkelson, the kid's got a lot to believe in. And this just whole Tigers team, I think, it was a learning and, growing year. Like, hey, listen, they were really good this year, was the best team in baseball for the first half of the season. So I think, with all of these young players, that we're going to talk about today here, there's a lot to believe in. And I think Torkelson is one of those guys that, if we get him at that price where I have him ranked around the 15th first baseman, which let's see where, the 15th first baseman was going last season. That's around pick 112, and that was Vinny P this past year. Yeah, I think that's a good spot. I think that's a good spot for, Spencer Torkelson heading into the 2026 season. Once again, the profiles, power, the counting stats are going to be pretty good. Batting average not going to be great. But I think there's a world where maybe even 35 home runs for Torkelson. It's tough in this Detroit park. If he played in a Colorado, I'd say it'd be 40 home runs easily for a guy like this. But, the Detroit suppresses it a little bit. So Spencer Torkelson, do like the profile heading into 2026. Coming up next, we got names like Kerry Carpenter, Colt Keith, and then we'll get into the pitching from this past season, Tarik Skubal, Jack Flaherty, and more coming up next. And all right, guys, I got to talk to you about my friends over at Game Time. The NFL season is here, and, bear with me, folks, 1 second here. And all right, we are back. I'm actually going to talk to you about my friends over at FanDuel first, right? The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you just don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right, pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Me personally, I've been using FanDuel a long time, and I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays, tried player props, and even followed the live lines during the games. And it just makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action, right? Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, you get all nerdy with it, you're breaking everything down. FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for, guys? Come on, there isn't anything. Shouldn't be waiting for anything, right? Not at all. Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started now. And all right, folks, let's jump back in. We talked Riley Green. We talked, a little Spencer Torkelson. Let's do some Kerry Carpenter, man. Kerry Carpenter, so underrated coming into the year, man. I know Matt and I want to say we're two of the highest in the industry, on Kerry Carpenter. And, finished the year with just another pretty solid stat line. Another Tiger, that took a step back in the batting average department to sell out for power. Hey, maybe that was more of a philosophy in Detroit there this year. 130 games, though, for Kerry Carpenter, 433 at-bats, 66 runs, 18 doubles, 5 triples, 26 bombs, 62 RBIs, 1 steal, 18 walks to 106 strikeouts. So Carpenter definitely not a points league guy for sure. And a 252 batting average. Now, like I said, Carpenter leaving a bit on the table to be desired when it comes to batting average. He's a career 268 guy. He only hit 252 this past season. We see, a step up in the power, though. We like to see that. And I think Kerry Carpenter is just getting better as he gets older. A little bit of a platoon issue at times. But even if you look at the expected batting average, underlying stats for Kerry Carpenter, 263 batting average. The power, very, very legitimate when you look at stuff like, the X slug, the average exit velocities, the barrel percentage, hard hit rate. Kerry Carpenter just does everything right when you're looking at the underlying metrics for, power stats. He'll be 28 this upcoming season. I think there's potential for, a breakout year. I think there's a world where Carpenter could hit 270 with 30 home runs, some really good counting stats. He has to get the plate discipline to be better. You're not gonna strike out 106 times and only take 18 walks and be super successful at the plate. So I think that's going to be where he's going to have to make some improvements. And I think if he does, we can definitely see a Kerry Carpenter breakout in 2026. I don't think I've worked him into my outfielder rankings yet. I think you'll be easily able to get him as in your standard 12-man league. I think he'll be taken as potentially like a second utility or a bench bat. Your 5 outfielder leagues, you're talking probably more around outfielder 4 or 5. Kerry Carpenter last year was taken as the outfielder number 50, and that was at pick 182. I think Carpenter bounces up this year a bit when we're talking about outfielders, because I think outfield is definitely going to be a worse position going into 2026 than it was last year. I actually have Kerry Carpenter in my outfielder rankings already. Been working on those 2026 outfielder rankings at this, or just my 2026 rankings in general at this point. Outfield number 40. So, you're talking like an outfield, like I said, a little bit past an outfielder number 3, like that utility spot, that OF4. That's where we're looking at Carpenter, and the profile. I'm hoping there's more batting average in 2026. All arrows are pointing to that direction. The power is legit. The power, I don't think we're questioning that at all. Depending on where Carpenter hits in this lineup, that's going to depend on how good the counting stats are. But everything profile is good. 130 games, 66 runs, and 62 RBIs isn't horrible. I wouldn't say that profile is like 70 or 80 runs, 75 RBIs, not bad. And then maybe closer to 30 home runs and 260 batting average. That's my semi-comp for, Kerry Carpenter going into, 2026. So, like I said, take that little prediction with a grain of salt, but I think there, is a world where, Kerry Carpenter has a really strong season next year, even potential breakout season. Let's move on to his next guy. Let's talk about Colt Keith. Colt Keith was only 23 years old this past season, and I saw a lot of progression. I saw things that I liked, right? 137 games this past season compared to 148 in 2024. So we're going to do a little comparison here, right? 100 less at-bats pretty much. 516 at-bats for Keith in 24, 414 in 25. He had 11 more runs, 65 runs to 54. He had a bunch more doubles, 22 doubles compared to 15 in 24. Couple less triples, but hey, listen, we weren't you're not expecting more and less games, right? But still very close. 4 triples in 24, 2 triples in 25. 13 home runs in each year, 100 less at bats, same amount of home runs. RBIs, listen, more of an opportunity thing, 45 RBIs this past season, 61 the year before, 256 batting average this past season, 260 the year prior. But, listen, the walk to strikeout ratio improved, 48 walks to, 36 the year prior, only 102 strikeouts. Colt Keith, another player I'm keeping on my radar for a potential breakout in 2026. I like what he brings to the table. This Detroit team is really good with their prospects. They've been doing a good job over the past few years developing these players. A lot of homegrown kids just looking really good. The underlying stuff for Colt Keith, I like it. Batting average 267. Finds that sweet spot pretty well, squares the ball up nicely, doesn't chase, doesn't whiff, walks a good amount. The sprint speed is even above average at the 66th percentile of sprint speed. I know he only stole 1 base this past year, but hey, listen, he could profile for a little bit more than that. He stole 7 bags in 2024. Not really like a big part of his profile, but hey, he can go out there and steal you some bags too. Don't be shocked. So Colt Keith, somebody that I don't think we're going to have to pay a lot for in, going into 2026. But something I'm keeping on my radar. Also on Yahoo, I don't know if he retains all of this eligibility, but it's first, second, and third base eligibility for Colt Keith. Definitely somebody I want on my teams next year because I think the breakout possibility is high. And also, I didn't even mention this. Colt Keith is a very high-end prospect, coming out of the 2023 season was really, really high end. So Colt Keith, definitely somebody, keep him on your radar for. I don't think I've thrown him into my rankings yet. Definitely somebody I have to mix in there, but keep him on your radar for 2026. Definitely somebody we'll be talking about and keeping our eye on going into spring training. Let's do one pitcher here. Let's talk about him. Let's talk about Tarik Skubal, the pterodactyl. Matt gave him that nickname a few years back. I think it's one of the best nicknames in baseball. So, Tarik Skubal, man, just he's one of the best, if not the best, right? Let's just do the numbers. As a 28-year-old in 2025, Skubal made 31 starts, 13 wins, 2.21 ERA, 195 innings, 241 strikeouts, and 0.89 whip. I will rank Skubal as the number 1 starting pitcher going into 2026. If you say, hey, listen, Dom, I got Paul Skeens as the number 1 starting pitcher going into 2026, I will say I am not going to argue with you on that because that's fair. They're a 1A, 1B right now, but Skubal, definitely you could take him on. I don't know if we're doing the first round pitcher thing in 26, but if you want to take Skubal or Skeens at the turn, let's say you're in a 12-man league, you have the 12th pick, you want to take a bat and then go Skubal or Skeens, I'm not mad at that. If you want to take either one of them in the second round to pair with, a great bat that you took in the first, I will not be mad at that either. Will I personally be taking that, route with it? I won't. I'm usually more of a, hey, I'll wait to the third, fourth round for my first starting pitcher kind of guy. But with the talent of a Skubal and Skeens, and I just think they're both at the top of their game, especially Skubal, going to be 29 next year, and he's done this the past 3 years straight. I think he's got at least 2 or 3 more years of just being arguably the best starting pitcher in baseball. Then we will pass it off to Skeens. So there's not really too much else to add here on Skubal, except, hey, listen, if he is not injured going into the season next year, you could take him. I want to say at the end of your first round turn, like, if you got the 12th pick there, you take him in a bat, or your second round. I'm not mad at it either. But we will move on. We will talk about Jack Flaherty's performance this past season, Reese, Olson, and who is Kevin McGonigle, the top prospect in the Tiger system. Those names and more coming up next. And all right, now it is time to talk to you about my friends over at Game Time, right? And especially with the World Series here, it's nothing like catching a baseball game live, the energy, the crowd, the chance to see your team in person, but actually getting the tickets, that's where the tough part is. Queues, login screens, surprise fees, it takes the fun out of it. That's why I use Game Time, right? The app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Game Time is fast, easy to use, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all the fees are included up front, so you see the exact price that you're going to pay. No surprise fees. That makes it super simple. I can even see the exact view from the seat I'll be sitting in before buying, and that, guys, that's one of the best things. So you know exactly where you see. You're going to get the view of the field or court or whatever you're going to see. You're going to know exactly what it looks like. And the fees are included, so you know your total up front with no surprise fees when you check out. And then listen, they got something else going on now too. It's called zone deals. I love those. You pick the section, and then Game Time is going to pick the seats you'll be sitting in, and you're going to save big. And when I say big, I mean big. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I've bought tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. And again, use that promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. And all right, guys, let's keep it moving. Let's talk about Jack Flaherty, man. And I can't even hide it. This one pisses me off. I was a big Jack Flaherty guy coming into the year. I'm like, hey, listen, he had a great year in Detroit in 24. Well, it wasn't a full year, but the time he was there in Detroit was really good. It was 18 starts in 2024 for Flaherty. Then went over to the Dodgers for 10 starts, and then, was a free agent and went back to Detroit. I'm like, listen, man, he figured it out pitching there. He's going to be great. He was abysmal. I was not a fan of Flaherty's year. 31 starts, 8 wins, 4.64 ERA, 161 innings, 188 strikeouts, and a 1.28 whip. Yeah, the strikeouts were good, but everything else was bad. The 8 wins wasn't good. The 4.64 ERA was atrocious. The 1.28 whip, horrible. And the funny thing is when you needed him most, you probably dropped him, and he had a good start against my Yankees in the fantasy baseball playoffs, and it's very aggravating. And with Flaherty heading into 2026, I believe, I think he's got one more year, I think, in Detroit. Looks like he's signed through the 2026 season. I don't know. It depends on, I don't know if I'm buying back in. I guess it really just depends on where we have to draft him. If you could take Flaherty as your SP6, SP7, sure. I don't think there's any drama in it there. It's if it is a high 3s, low 4s ERA with over a K per 9 and a mediocre whip, chance at some wins. Yeah, sure. But you know what? We had to take Flaherty as like our SP5 last year, SP4 in some spots, and it wasn't fun. So, like I said, I'm not gonna be in on Flaherty too much in 2026. If we can get him at a cheap rate, sure. Flaherty's been taken as a 38th starting pitcher, pick 132. Definitely, that was last year. Not doing it. I've ranked about, I want to say like 40, 50 starting pitchers so far. I've ranked 51 starting pitchers. Don't have Flaherty in there yet, but I think he's going to be in that next group. So let's just say for laughs, Flaherty is like SP 55-ish. Yeah, so if we're getting Flaherty around closer to pick 200, I'll probably be in on him. If not, see you later. But let's move on. Let's talk about somebody I'm more interested in. It's Reese, Olson. Once again, we're talking Detroit Tigers here today, so that's the team, he's on. With Reese Olson, I like him. Had a really, really strong, on his way to like a big breakout season this year before injury, derailed them. 13 starts on the year for Olson, a 3.15 ERA, 68 innings pitched, 65 strikeouts, a 1.20 WHIP. I like Olson. He's somebody that I probably will have a few shares going into next season just to kind of see, hey, can he, build off of some of those things that we like that were, causing him to be successful, going into the 2026 season, right? The changeup was a really great pitch for him that he used a bit more in 2025 than in past years, was up 3% usage on the changeup. Batters only hit 143 against it. I really liked that. Was working on that curveball, like he was in 24. Got good results on that. The sinker, really, I don't know what's going on with it because he started to lead with the sinker this past year. Got bad results on it this year, got bad results on it in 24. I think he needs to get back to that slider, where that was one of his big pitches that works for him. Batters only hit 143 against the slider in 2024. Batters hit 241 against the slider in 2025. If Olson could keep that slider, changeup combo really working for him, I think that's where he's going to, make his money. He's still young enough at 26 years old that I think we could see that, like I talked about, potential, 30-start breakout season where you see like a 3.60 ERA, right around that K per 9, potentially higher. And can he just nail the control down, right? Can Olson have these, can he be dotting these pitches, putting them where he wants them to? I think it's possible that he could pitch to maybe like a 1.15, 1.16 kind of whip. I definitely think so. And it's a good park, good team to pitch in. He was learning from Skubal. I like me some Reese Olson going into, the 2026 season. Him or Flaherty, that's a tough one for me. I'd probably have Olson a little bit higher than Jack Flaherty. But then again, if you want the strikeouts, I'd probably go Flaherty. If you want a little bit more of the safety net, I'd go Reese Olson. But I think they're going to probably be, around within 5 pitchers of each other in my rankings. But I don't think I have either one of them ranked yet. Let's talk about Casey Mize, another pitcher here in Detroit. They're doing something here, man. They're doing something. These pitchers are all, solid. They're not, I don't think any of them are blowing you away except Skubal, but solid, right? Casey Mize, former number 1 overall pick. We're talking all the way back in 2018, though. Finally has a really solid season. He had a good one back in 2021, but I really like the year this year for Casey Mize. 28 starts, 3.87 ERA, a career high 14 wins, 149 innings, 139 strikeouts, a 1.26 WHIP. Now, Mize, I don't think you're going to have to pay a big price on Mize, where I think you're going to see the love for Flaherty still, where I think Flaherty's going to go higher. I think maybe the allure of a Reese Olson breakout causes him to go higher. And I think we're just going to get really good value on Mize going into, the 2026 season. Another one, I probably still would take Mize over Flaherty. That's maybe just me being spited and just not, wanting much to do with Flaherty anymore. But I think there's room to grow here for Casey Mize still, mixed he has, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pitches that he throws a good amount. Good results on almost all of them except the split finger, right? And, Casey Mize is the reason he was number 1 overall pick. I think he's going to age a little bit better if he could stay healthy. And, like I said, I don't think we're going to have to pay a big price on a Casey Mize. I think you're going to be able to get him as your SP6, 7, 8, and you'll be fine there with that. I think, a high 3s ERA, around that K per 9, the whip isn't going to be great. But at that point in your rotation, you just want, if you want somebody that's more solid and you don't want to throw a dart for an upside play there, I think Casey Mize will be pretty reliable. But I am pretty excited to talk about this last player of the day, and it is the number 2 prospect overall in all of baseball, Kevin McGonigle. Now, listen, if you haven't heard of the name before, you're going to want to make sure you know who Kevin McGonigle is heading into, 2026, because he might make the team, and there's a reason he's the number 2 prospect in overall in all of baseball. 305 batting average for McGonigle in the minors last year across 3 levels. That's 88 games played, 68 runs, 31 doubles, 2 triples, 19 bombs, 80 RBIs, 10 steals, 59 walks to 46 strikeouts. Now, McGonigle has a great hit tool, could be a 300 hitter out the bat, could be like a 20 home run guy with good counting stats, depending on where he hits in this lineup. Isn't really much of a speedster at all. I mean, did steal 22 bags back in 2024 across 2 levels, but I wouldn't expect more than 10 steals from a McGonigle, in a full season, especially in a rookie year. But McGonigle, shortstop, plays a little bit of second as well. I kind of want to see where Yahoo has his eligibility. Second in short eligibility on Yahoo for McGonigle. If McGonigle makes the team, he's having a big spring training, we need to draft him. I could see him being taken as high as like a number 10 second baseman, number 12, 13, 14 shortstop. If he has a big spring training, just a name that we're definitely going to want to keep our eye out for. Number 2 prospect in all of baseball, the Tigers' number 1 prospect. Could be a 300 hitter out of the gate with a little bit of power, not much speed, but the counting stats could be nice too, depending on where he hits in this lineup. That is Kevin McGonigle. And guys, that is all for today. Shout out to, our everydayers and new listeners making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. And guys, make sure you check out the newsletter as well. And until next time, see you.